know that you wanted to produce as well, because I mean, to do music is, to, of course, songwriting, or sometimes people just like, hey, I just want to sing. When was
Yeah.
what was that process of like, hey, I want to sing, write songs, and produce?
Well, it wasn't by choice. I couldn't find producers.
Wow.
Yeah, mostly all of the producers in my area or in my city, they were more on the traditional style. I
Yeah.
only knew gospel musicians, so they were playing gospel music. So it was a real chordy, a lot of a lot of uh, great things, but just not the production style that I was hearing from Jodeci and Boyz II Men and hip hop and all of
Yeah.
those things. So, it was really hard. And the people that I did know of, I mean, they were just untouchable.
Wow.
I
Wow.
knew these producers, I knew of producers, but I mean, I couldn't call Rodney Jerkins up and work with him or work with these people. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
was just like really experimenting on my own. And so it actually kind of forced me into production. I had
Wow.
already been a producer like in high school. I was making rap tracks and stuff for people and selling them for 25 bucks for a beat on a CD. And
Yeah.
that was kind of my thing. So I was very familiar with producing, but trying to create that production, that professional mainstream sound that I didn't even think I had the ability to do. I just started to work on it, and it got really good. And so I also at that time I met this guy Teddy P. We call him Teddy P now.
Yeah.
But Ted and I were growing up in the same church, and he could play better than me. He just couldn't produce. He was just a
Yeah.
really good musician. And so I was like, well, I can't play that well, but I know how to produce. And he
Yeah.
can't produce that well, but he knows how to play. So I was like, we
Yeah.
should get together and put some things together. So basically, I was just telling him what was in my mind that I could not play. I was just like, hey,
Yeah.
how about a chord that goes to this, that feels like that? And then he'll just start playing on it like, that's it. And so then he plays the chords, and then I go and get the drum track together, and boom, now we have a track. And then I start hearing melodies, which I go back to me and my mom playing around singing forever. And now we have melodies, and then a song develops. And
Got
that's
you.
literally how I got to finish up that first project called Champion.
How can you tell somebody out there the difference between knowing how to play and producing?
Yeah, well, knowing how to play it is great. First of all, if you know how to play
Yeah.
an instrument and you do it well, I mean, that's a God-given talent, I would say. But the difference in just playing and producing is taste.
Okay.
Sometimes, just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should,
Yeah.
or doesn't mean that we should always do it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't, I shouldn't always, every time I get the ball, I dunk. You know what I'm saying? Like eventually somebody's gonna like, oh, he's gonna dunk. And so I'm gonna
Yeah.
block it. Like it's just like, yeah, so it's just like, having taste,
Yeah.
knowing when to go all out, knowing when to play in the pocket. And if you don't know what the pocket is, it's just to play digestible chords or play digestible music to where anybody who doesn't even know how to produce music or make music, they can digest what you're saying, what you're giving
Yeah.
them. Sometimes I'm a musician, so sometimes I'm listening to something and I think it's so amazing, and I let my wife hear it, and she's like, "That just sounds like a bunch of stuff." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, yeah." Well, see, you're not a musician. He just did the G minor chord with the something chord and the this chord. In my mind, I'm like, "Oh, I'm blown away." And so, to
Yeah.
a person that isn't into that, they're like, "It's too much." And
Yeah.
so, most of the consumers or most of the people that are going to listen to your music aren't you. They
Got
are
you.
not musicians. They don't know music in that way. They just like what they hear.
Yeah.
So, that's the difference, I think, of being a musician and also being a producer is having taste and just knowing what will work for everybody.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Got you. Talk about Champion, man. Talk about that project and like the songs off that project. What made you go in that direction of saying like, man, I need to create R&B, and not even like,
Yeah.
because at that time, I mean, we had like the whole urban gospel
We
sound and
did. We did.
different things of that nature, but as I went back and listened to it, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, this is like really like I could put up on I could put a Trey Songz record on, a Chris Brown record, and I could put on Drive Me Crazy, and nobody
That's
could be
true.
like, that's different than the rest of
That's
that.
true.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
true.
what was your thought process about that with Champion?
My thought process with Champion was honestly, and if you listen to that album, it overall it is kind of like a Christian R&B type of vibe, but
Yeah,
that was really just me creating every sound that I liked at the time.
got you.
You know, like I was really into pop music at the time. I was really into hip hop music at the time. I was into R&B at the time. I mean, I was into a little bit of everything. And so,
Yeah,
you know, I just tried to make an album that I would like, and I wanted to make something that I felt everyone would at least find one record on here.
got
You
you.
know, like it
Got
doesn't
you.
matter who you are. Like there's gonna be one song on here that at least you would like. You know, and so I wanted to make a project for everybody. I knew that my grandmother would listen. I knew that my uncles would listen. I knew that young people would listen. I knew that people, my peers at the time would listen. So, you know, I wanted something for everybody. And I'm so grateful that I kind of went into it thinking like that because that kind of set the foundation of who I became as an artist.
Yeah,
You know, I wanted to make music for everybody. And which also goes into that whole phase of me saying that, you know, the youth choir's music and the music I was hearing at church wasn't connecting with me anymore. You
yeah,
know, it was, and I was just like, man, I still love God. So I need to, let's create some music that connects with me where I am now in life. And it
yeah.
still references who Jesus is. And so, you know, that's really what I did. If I was a listener, I would want to listen to this. You
Got
know,
you.
that was my mindset. It's like, okay, if I wasn't me, what would I want to hear as a young Christian? I
Yeah,
want to hear something like this. And
yeah.
so I created that. And you know, it went over really well, man. And you know, I
Wow.
was really grateful because I saw the response. This is all new. This is new to, you know, online and
Yeah,
all of this stuff
yeah,
is brand new around this time. So I'm seeing responses and people loving the music all the way in Hong Kong, you know, from London
wow.
to Hong Kong to Africa. And, you know, people are sending me messages and sending emails, you know. And so I saw the response not only just in my neighborhood or in my city, you know, I started to see it worldwide. And
Mm,
then, you know, there's YouTube, and then YouTube is out now. And that's when the tables kind of turn.
yeah.
It turned because now I'm getting all kinds of things now. Now the response is mixed, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
because now I'm getting people that are just like, wait a minute, what is this?
yeah.
You know, is this is the devil? You know, I was getting, yeah, man. I was getting a lot of different mixed reviews, and you know,
Wow.
that's when things started to change for me for a minute. I must say,
Got
just to
you.
be honest.
Got you. What was the photo shoot about Champion? Because it's so fly. It's like a
Ah,
fly, like it's like Jordan in the waves and he
yeah,
just
yeah,
chilling.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
what was that like shoot
Honestly,
about?
it was just a fly pick, man. Honestly, no, I don't even have an answer to that. I was like, oh, this looks cool, and I also knew that a lot of my favorite albums are the biggest albums. People were sitting on the floor. They sat on the floor. I said, I need to sit on the floor. Michael Jackson sat on the floor. Teddy P sat on the floor. Teddy Pendergrass, excuse me. Teddy Pendergrass sat on the floor. All these greats sat on the floor. Jay Moss was in it. Jay Moss was on the floor in a little window thing with his arm on the floor. He's sitting. I said, I got to sit on the floor. And so I definitely sat on the floor. And the
Yeah,
team at the time, they was like, oh, this is the dope picture. I was like, that looks like an album cover. And we didn't even care if it matched the sound of the album or anything. We just like, well, this is a really dope pick. Let's do it. Let's do it,
yeah.
man.
But it
Yeah.
did
So
match
thank
though.
you,
The,
though.
the, the,
It
the, the
ended up,
match.
yeah.
It did. It did. The look of it. It looked
Hey,
R&B. It didn't look
hey,
like
man.
your traditional gospel or even
Yeah,
contemporary gospel. It looked like
absolutely.
an
I
R&B
showed it
album.
to I showed it to my grandfather, who God rest his soul now, but he was a pastor. He was pastor in 3 churches at that time.
Wow.
He saw that album cover and he said, "Oh no, that don't look like a Christian, a gospel album cover." He was like, I don't know what this is. He's like, don't even play it for me. I don't even want to hear it. I said, oh my God, that's how I knew I was on the right track.